Welcome back, my friends. Today is a super exciting day because it is finally time to start our seeds. I am a Zone 4A Minnesota gardener, which means we are about 12 weeks from our last expected frost. We'll see how the spring goes. That means it's time to start our onions, our shallots. I'm also going to be starting some parsley and thyme. And so I thought I'd bring you along the way as I start my seeds. I'll be sharing lots of tips. I've learned a lot over the years. And today I'm going to be doing a fun little experiment that I am super pumped about. So we'll dig into that as well. But let's just take a pause for a minute and enjoy this weather. If you are in Minnesota, you are probably also outside in a short sleeve t-shirt. It is only in the 40s, but it feels magical compared to the -20 we had last week. So spring is just around the corner. We're going to be tapping maple trees soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's go grab our supplies and get some seeds started. And if you saw my seed starting video last year, you might remember that it was such a chaotic mess just to even find my stuff because we were still in the mess of just recently moving and everything. So last month I finally organized and I'm feeling so much more adult-like, I guess, with my supplies. So let's go grab everything. Ta-da! I am so happy about this. First up are the seed starting trays. I absolutely love these ones from Epic Gardening. They are super durable. I finally switched over to these a couple of years ago, and I'll show you compared to the standard ones that I've had for years from my local gardening center. I mean, these are so flimsy. They're a lot cheaper, I get it, but they crack, they break. I have to tape them all back together, and if you're able to, highly recommend just going for the good one. This will last you forever. I know it's still plastic, but at least it won't need replaced in a few years. Also going to need a heated seedling mat for my seeds, especially onions. I found that they need a little bit more heat, so we'll be pairing this together. And then I like to start most, but not all of my seedlings in these 6-cell seed starting pods. And these are awesome. Again, these are really solid, durable ones from Epic, which I absolutely love. If you want to check these out, I can link them in the description for you. I think I also have a discount code, which is sweet. And then we're also going to bring these bigger ones with us. So these are the 4-cell pods, I guess, seed starting pods from Epic Gardening. And I'll show you once we get inside what we're going to be doing with these. Oh, well, hi. Do you want to help me? This is Lucy. She's one of our little kitties. She's not as good of a mouser as the other two, but we still love you. I also need my good old yoga blocks that I saved for seed starting, so this will make more sense in a minute. Come here. Oh, I thought you guys would never meet him. This is Oliver. He is our super shy cat. He usually doesn't even typically like me. Yep, he's gone now. Okay, I think that's it. The last few things I have in the house. Next up is a good quality seed starting mix. I always look for something that's organic. That just feels better for me when I am growing my own food in this. And I've been using Purple Cow the last few years. It's something that I can readily find at my somewhat local gardening center, but I want to experiment a little bit with Coast of Maine as well. So I'll show you in a little bit my experiment for that. But in the meantime, let's get our seed starting mix ready to go. The last thing you want to do is just directly use the seed starting mix straight from the bag. And the reason why that is because it's really dry in here because it keeps the bag light, you know, for shipping and, you know, prevents mold growth and that type of a thing. So if we were just to seed directly into this, the water would just shed right off of it. And unfortunately, I do know that from personal experience. I'm always trying to see where I can cut corners. That is not one of them. Let's go ahead and get this into a bowl. And honestly, at first glance, they look pretty darn similar. As you can see that they both have perlite. They actually have very similar color characteristics too. One's not more brown or more black. I would say that the feeling of this is a little bit more fine of the Coast of Maine, where the Purple Cow is maybe a little bit more coarse. So that would maybe give the Coast of Maine a slight leg up. But I don't know. Time will tell when we do our little experiment. So all I do is just add a little bit of water incrementally, and I'll show you the exact amount of moisture level that we are looking for. And I'm adding pretty warm water here. I tend to store these bags on the floor where it's a little cooler. I'd say they're probably 60 degrees. and our seeds like a little bit warmer of temperatures when it comes to the soil temperature, especially onions. You know, things like cabbage and broccoli and lettuce, they're okay with the cooler temps, but we're doing the onions today, the shallots, they like the warmer temperatures. I'm just gonna use a basic kitchen spoon, nothing fancy. Just kind of work that in. Ironically, I cleaned my floors a couple of days ago. I should have waited. I'm already making a huge mess. I actually debated doing this outdoors because it's so nice out, but it's still, you know, it's only 40 some degrees. So I don't know, it's that borderline. And I just like to incrementally keep adding some water to it because you can't go backwards. If you overdo it, you're kind of screwed unless I guess you add more mix to it to even it out. But make sure you get all the way to the bottom too. I can notice it's a little dry down there. Okay, this is just about right. So you can see it is holding its shape almost. We don't want it, you know, turning into a mud cake or anything, but it's not super crumbly either. So this is perfect and exactly what we want. All right, let's locate our seeds. I love these photo organization bins. These have been a lifesaver. I got this finally a couple years ago, and now I don't know how I lived without it. So highly recommend it. I'll link this in the description if you don't have one yet. And some people like to organize them alphabetically. I like to do it by plant family. That works for me. So we have our onions here. So I'm going to be doing the Sedona F1 for my main bulb onion. I've been growing these for years. They are just amazing, amazing. Hopefully they won't bolt like they did last year. That was such an odd year. I've never had that happen before. It was definitely weather related. So fingers crossed that this year is better. We're also going to be doing shallots. I absolutely love these. They're kind of like a mix between an onion and garlic. If you've never had shallots before, they're smaller, but they really pack a punch. So these are going to be great. And then we're going to pick out some herbs. So thyme also needs a full 12 weeks indoors to get started before transplanting outside. And it does come back every year, and I have 6 thyme plants out there, which has been great, but I want even more. So we're gonna do a few more thyme. And then we have our parsley. I love the flat leaf parsley. That's just my favorite, and it freeze dries really well. Now we can put the rest of these away. The bulk of our seed starting won't begin until March, but March is right around the corner. We'll be there soon. So let's start with our herbs first. So I'm gonna put my little experimental bowl from the coast of Maine off to the side. We'll just stick with our tried and true for now. And for the herbs, just like most anything else that I start, we'll use these little guys. So nothing too fancy. We'll just pack it in there, but not fully packed either. Here you can see I'm kind of going up along and just gently pressing down the soil and making sure that it's not filled all the way to the top. This one's a little too low for me though. I'm gonna add a little bit more. Let's start with our thyme, and these are probably the hardest seeds to work with. I'll show you why. They are absolutely tiny. But the good news about thyme is it kind of likes to grow in clumps, so I just kind of sprinkle a few in there the best that I can. And I want 6 new thyme plants, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill this whole thing with the thyme seeds. A few extras for later. And I always like to double check on the back of my package to see how deep they like to be planted. So thyme prefers a seed planting depth of 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a tiny little thin layer of soil right on top of our seeds. So just barely. That clump was too big. Come on out. And thyme needs some light for germination, so that thin layer is really key for that too. You want to be able to have the sunlight come through and activate those seeds. And then I just like to press with my finger to make sure that those seeds stay evenly spaced and in place, especially once we start watering, they can kind of start spreading around in there. So that looks good. Now, probably the most important part, probably not really, but kind of, is remembering to add a marker so that you know what you planted, because sometimes it can be a couple weeks before they germinate and then they don't quite look exactly like the mature plant for a while. So always try to add a marker if you can. And there we go. Thyme is done. Now parsley, I'm only doing 3, so I'm going to try and just fill 3 of the cells. Doing the same method, just kind of pressing it down. This one again is a little bit too shallow, so I'm going to add a little bit more soil to it. Now that was probably too much. You just got to play with it. That's looking pretty good. Now parsley, seed planting depth 1/4 inch, so a little bit more. I would say most seeds need 1/4 inch, so that's pretty standard. If you can't figure it out, if Google doesn't tell you, 1/4 inch will probably get it done. Now parsley is a little bit different than thyme, where thyme, I put probably 6 or 7 seeds per each of those cells, but parsley likes a little bit more room, not as much competition. So I'm going to put 2 to 3 seeds per cell, let them germinate, pick the best one, and then thin the rest out. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just do your best. And I just try to make sure that they each have room, you know, don't pile all 3 seeds right on top of each other. Adding the 1/4 inch of soil on top again. That looks about right. Just going to press that down. And now, since this isn't a full cell, I'll probably go back and add something else in there later once you get to that point. I really want to make sure that I'm marking this appropriately for those cells. So I like to use a little symbol like this that designates that these 3 cells are parsley. Okay, so we are cruising along here. We have our thyme and our parsley. Let's move on to the tricky ones, the onions. Now, onions are the only thing that you don't end up potting throughout the seed starting season, meaning these guys and everyone else, they're going to end up outgrowing these little cells in a couple of weeks for sure, and then I'll upgrade them into bigger pots. I'll show you how I do those in a future video, but onions are different where they're just going to live in the same pot for the whole time. You don't end up upgrading them. So you may as well start them off in a bigger cell. That way they have a little bit more wiggle room and all that room for deep root development. This is a new thing that I tried in the last couple of years, and it has made such a difference in my onion seedlings. I used to just put them in these and leave them in these, and it just wasn't enough. So these are great. We're gonna do a lot of onions. I do about 200 seeds, so we're gonna get busy here. Okay, if I'm doing 200 onion seeds and I'm doing 15 seeds per cell, my math tells me I need about 13.5 cells. And there's 4 in each of these, so I figure let's go ahead and just do 16 and we'll keep it even. I feel like plant math is kind of like chicken math. It's like, well, let's just round up because you never know, maybe one will fail. It's good to have extras. So we'll get these out of the way. So now let's do our fun little experiment. So what I want to do is I'm going to do half with the purple cow and half with the Costa Maine, and we'll just kind of track along and see how they do and how they compare, and so we can really see maybe if that one truly is superior to the other. I'm all about experimenting and trying new things, so I'm excited about this. So same thing again, just kind of packing it in there. Now the key for kind of packing in the soil a little bit is to get all of the little air pockets out of there. So you don't want your seedlings to hit an air pocket and like fall down or anything like that. So that's looking pretty good for me. Nice and just gently packed in there, nothing too aggressive. Let's go ahead and get the others done. Okay. That looks good. Now our test batch. Now, since these look so similar, I'm going to go ahead and do my plant markers now so that I remember which soil is which. Okay, onions, here we go. I'm so excited. I would say that onions are probably my favorite vegetable. I just absolutely love them. So don't fail me this year, onions. So I'm just gonna go along and hopefully get 15 in there. I'm gonna try not to talk so I can count. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we'll go ahead and finish this one and then I'll show you kind of my pro tip to make it better. So now you can see that they are pretty evenly spaced, but not perfect. So I just like to move them around and press them in the soil so they stay. So like that's pretty good. That's what we're looking for. And it's especially important that all these seeds are evenly spaced for these onions because, again, they're just going to be living in this pot. They're not going to be moved. So they're going to need lots of, not lots of wiggle room, but enough between the seeds so that they are happy in these little pots until they go into the garden. Woohoo! I think we did it. That looks good. So remembering which seed is which, we need to top it off with a little bit of the soil on top. So again, about 1/4 inch is what we're looking for. So I'm just going to sprinkle it on there and then press it down evenly. And then with our new soil, I will say it feels very nice. It feels less gritty, maybe. Maybe there's a little bit less sand in there. So we'll see. Alrighty. Can't forget our shallots. I'll probably just use my purple cow for that. We'll keep the onions, the experimental ones. And for shallots, how many shallots am I going to do? 40 seeds worth. If you don't have a copy of this already, this is my seed starting guide. This is awesome. You can get a copy for free. I'll just put the link in the description. You just sign up for my email list and this will come in your first welcome email. This is, I don't know what I would do without this. This is how I stay organized and just know when I'm starting my seeds and how many I'm going to do, how many weeks they need, just all the things. This is gold. You're definitely going to want one. So I think we're going to do a little bit of plant math again with the shallots because if I did 10 seeds per cell for 4, that would be 40 seeds, but I like to do 15 seeds per pod, so we're just going to go for it. Now it would probably be way more efficient to have a big tub where I could mix up my seed starting mix. That sounds so wonderful. Maybe that's something I need to finally invest in, but until then, just using my small little glass bowls, I guess. Now I should mention too that shallots and onions are one of those things where the seeds don't last very long. It is best to get new onion and shallot seeds every year. Where other things, they can last 2, 3, even 5 to 6 years depending on the type of seed. And I actually have a guide that kind of walks you through how long each kind of seeds are good for. I will also link that in the description. Apparently it's gonna be full of gold for you guys today. So that's probably step 1. I already did this in the fall when I did seed inventory, but always make sure you're working with seeds that are still viable and should hopefully germinate. Adding a little bit of soil on top again. Now comes the fun part. We just water everything in, and I really like this one because it has a nice kind of gentle stream. I feel like some of the pails out there just really get going, which is great later on in the season when I need to efficiently water a bunch of established seedlings. But right now we don't want to be messing around all those seeds that we carefully kind of packed in there where they need to go. So just a gentle little stream is what we're looking for, and we just want to fully saturate the soil. So we already kind of saturated it a little bit, but now we truly want to get it fully moist. Now, of course, we don't want it just a complete slime fest. Now, I'm definitely a big fan of bottom watering, where you just kind of fill about 1 inch of water in the tray at the bottom. But I don't like to do that during this phase. When I'm trying to get the seeds to germinate, I like to water from the top, and then once they germinate, I switch to bottom watering. Okay, so seeds are in. Next is light. If you are in the far south, maybe you can get away with a window, but I feel like that is probably the biggest mistake that I see beginners make. I already got several messages this winter already from people starting seeds, and they're all leggy and sad and wimpy because they weren't using a grow light at all or a proper grow light. I'll show you what I'm going to be using. So then we move it over here to seed starting land. Eventually this will all be covered with seedlings, but we're going to start here with my baby light. And when I was talking about lots of light, I mean, look at that. We have lots and lots. So that is exactly what seedlings are going to want when they're first starting out, to really get some strong growth and sturdy growth. And then underneath it, I like to use a heat mat or a germination mat to help those seeds germinate, since a lot of them like a little bit more heat. Now, not all of them do, you know, like lettuce seeds actually like cooler temperatures, but onions for sure. And I never used to add this to my seeds because back at our homestead, I was lucky enough to have a spare bedroom to grow my seedlings in. And with all the grow lights going and the doors closed, it stayed pretty warm in there. But now I am doing it all on the kitchen table of our tiny little cabin, and it is what it is. And naturally, it's just a little bit cooler in here. So last year I did have a little bit more of a tricky time with germination. So I'm adding a heated mat this year. So if you are growing your seeds in a slightly cooler area, we're talking, 60, 65. Basically, if it's cooler than 70, I would add a heated mat. Let's go ahead and move these guys down here. Now, one thing to note with this light is that it's actually fairly tall, so there is too much of a gap here, in my opinion, between the top of the light and where the seeds are. I prefer just a couple of inches, so that is where these yoga blocks come in. I wish this was a little bit more adjustable, but that's okay. It's still pretty awesome. And unfortunately, they no longer make this. I've had it for, almost 10 years, and it is hanging in there. I'm dreading the day when it finally decides to die on me. But that's the thing with grow lights. They are an investment in the beginning. It's kind of sticker shock and you truly get what you pay for, but they seem to last a long time. I pretty much still have all of my original grow lights from almost a decade ago. So spend the money up front. It really makes a big difference. Since again, this is discontinued, I can't link that for you guys, but I will link my big grow lights that I end up graduating all my seedlings to down in the description for you. So that looks pretty darn good. And I also down here have my grow light on a timer. So I like to set it to go on at 6 a.m. and off at 8 p.m. for 14 hours of daylight. Well, that was super fun to have you guys along for the seed starting. It's really feeling like spring is right around the corner now. This is just the beginning, a lot more seeds to go. We're gonna start swimming in seedlings in our little cabin, but that's all right. We're just so thankful that we can grow our own food and just so looking forward to gardening season. Thanks so much for tuning in. Ask away in the comments if you have any questions at all. I love to help you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next video.